again, it just tells the story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome to the Think Tank. Well, our day just went up. They have found the remains of Dylan Rounds. Hola guys, hola. I am like prickly, and there could not be better news. I don't know how. I did a lot on this boy, and he needed to come home. Let's check in with Nate Eaton.
Now, the body of Dylan Rounds has been found. Dylan Rounds, his remains have been found in the remote area of Lucin, Utah. Dylan is the young 19-year-old who vanished over Memorial Day weekend back in 2022. He was a farmer. He moved to the desert town of Lucin, Utah, which is in northern Utah, kind of near the Nevada border, when he vanished. And his family tells me that this morning his remains were found near or in Lucin in a remote area. That's
Oh, I was muted, my dogs. I'm sorry, guys. So he was found in Lucin, Utah, which is where he had his setup for the farm he had just started. You guys, oh lordy, lordy. You're Canadian too. I know, friend. Oh my word. Oh my word. I got chills.
all the information that we have at the moment from his family. Of course, Rounds had been missing since May of 2022. The 19-year-old spoke with his mother on the phone right before he vanished, and his family has spent the past 2 years searching for answers. His mother, Candace Cooley, tells me that as part of a plea agreement with James Brenner, the man accused of killing Dylan, Brenner led the investigators out to the site where the remains were on Tuesday morning, which would be today.
Brenner took them to his body. Oh my word. Praise the Lord. Whoever your God is, thank him. Prayers for Dylan. Such a good soul. Frickin' Brenner took them to his remains. They weren't going to let up on him. They were not going to let up on him. I don't want Nate to strike me, so...
Day, April 9th, in case you're just tuning in, or you're watching on another day. They got there, they found those remains, and they have been recovered. Now, Brenner is charged with aggravated murder and abuse or desecration of a human body in connection to Rounds' death. Let me show you just how remote this area is. That's where Dylan was farming. That was his camper. That was his truck. And you can see there's not much around this area. It really was a desolate.
I've got that exact same picture in my files. So let's see here. Dylan was here. And Brenner, I believe, was a little bit further kind of back. And it sounds like he got pissy because a gate was taken down, and possibly Brenner's horse got out. This is allegedly. We are going to learn so much more. Oh my God, guys. I'm just taking a breath for a second. Okay.
Area. James Brenner, this is the man who is facing those charges. He, again, must have said something to investigators or cooperated or something. We don't have all of the details at this point, but they do have the remains because of where James Brenner led them. This is a spot where James Brenner had his camper. He lived near Dylan Rounds out there. Both of them were in separate campers. And when his...
Okay. So, yeah, back over here. And again, he had some kind of makeshift little thing up for a horse, allegedly. Everything pointed to Brenner. Things that were not in the camper originally, like a weapon and other things. The parents, the family would leave for a little while. They'd come back, and all of a sudden the weapon was back, and all of a sudden this. And the only person that had the opportunity to do this was Brenner. On top of that, the cops sat there and watched Brenner clean out his truck.
When Dylan's family went out to begin looking for him in late May of 2022, they found his boots right there behind that mound of dirt, which was some distance off. And there was also a shed right by James Brenner's camper. This is what that shed looked like. And within a few days of Dylan disappearing, James Brenner cleaned that shed to the point of how it looks now. You know, it doesn't look very clean, maybe to some of us.
So he did this right while the cops were watching, right in front of Candace. And oh my word, his dad, it'll come to me. He cleaned it all in front of them.
But he did remove bags out of that shed, according to Dylan's family, and he did take those to an undisclosed location. And so all of this would likely have come into play if there was a trial. It still could, as far as evidence. But as I mentioned, according to Dylan's family, as part of some sort of plea deal, Brenner took the authorities to the area where Dylan's body was, and they were able to find it. I spoke with Dylan's family. They, of course, are a lot of...
Are you kidding me, man? You guys. Share this out. There's not much out there right now, which is spooky. Come on.
Of emotions tonight. This has been such a mystery for 2 years now. But Candace did ask me to convey, we thank everyone for their support and love. We are grateful we now have Dylan's body and can bring him home.
Keep it coming. It's good.
For justice. And unclear when Mr. Brenner will appear in court again. There was a hearing scheduled for this month, but at last check, that was delayed. However,
he took them to his body. He took them to his body. And we know Lucin is just, well, Dylan was pretty much in the middle of Lucin. It was a ghost town. There was nothing there. A house or two somewhere. Dylan was found. I'm numb.
Now with the recovery of Dylan's body, it could be had sooner rather than later. I want to show you on a map just where this place is because it's desolate. And when I say this place, I don't mean where Dylan's remains were actually found, other than it was in the Lucin area, but that's a very large area. But this is where Lucin is. If you pull out here, you can see the Nevada-Utah border right here on the left of your screen. And then over here is Montello, Nevada. Dylan went back and forth between Montello and Lucin quite a bit. This
Oh,
was
Lordy.
another, if you want to say big town, it's not real big, but the closest, nearest town to where Lucin is. So he went back and forth between these two places. And in the early stages of the investigation, there was a lot of focus on Montello, and then it seemed to shift into Lucin. I don't even know if there's a population count for Lucin, but they do have an airport, as you can see. If we zoom out quite a bit more, this will give.
So Lucin is literally a dot on the map. A dot on the map. Box Elder. Authorities in Box Elder County say they believe they have found the remains of Dylan Rounds, a young man who went missing nearly 2 years ago. Rounds was 19 years old when he went missing in 2022. He was last seen over Memorial Day weekend in Montello, which is about 30 miles west of his home in the small town of Lucin. He had moved there from Idaho to start his own farm. So the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office said they recovered skeletal remains in a remote area near Lucin. The remains are presumed to belong to Rounds. They have been turned over to the Utah State Medical Examiner's Office to confirm the identity. James Brenner, 60 years old, was charged last year with deleting Dylan Rounds, along with the abuse and desecration of a body. Brenner had reportedly been squatting on a remote property near Rounds' property. The sheriff's office wrote, "Our hearts go out to the family of Dylan Rounds. We offer our sincere condolences for the loss of their family member. We understand the pain of their loss is immeasurable, and we want to express our deepest sympathies to them. It is our hopes that they can find peace moving forward. We would like to express our gratitude to our deputies, detectives, volunteers, and Box Elder County employees who have worked tirelessly investigating and assisting." Okay, do not pat yourself on the back because you guys put one hell of a fight up and you were not good to this family. James Brenner had to take them there. Don't be giving yourselves no pats on the back.
Give you a reference as far as where this is located. So over here is Tremont in Utah, Brigham City, Malad is here, Lava Hot Springs, Blackfoot, Shelley. So it's right over here. And it's quite a distance if you were to fly from Idaho Falls, or excuse me, if you were to drive from Idaho Falls down to Lucin. But this is where his body was found, and this is where family are breathing a sigh of relief now that his remains have been found. So there still are a lot of questions. There still are.
Yeah, like who helped him move Dylan to where he was found? I'd like to know a little bit of that. Oh, Lordy. Let's see what else I can find here. Remains presumed to be Dylan Rounds found in remote Utah desert after missing 2 years. Skeletal remains presumed to be those of 19-year-old Dylan Rounds, who has been missing since 2022, have been recovered in a remote area of northwestern Utah. Officials reported finding the remains on Tuesday in Box Elder County near Lucin. James Brenner, formally charged with first-degree aggravated and abuse or desecration of a human body for deleting rounds and disposing of his body. Brenner, who lived near Rounds, was considered by officials as a suspect in Rounds' disappearance in July 2022. According to the probable cause statement, Rounds' last signal to his phone was ping to a Lucin pond, not far from where Brenner was staying. Box Elder County deputies were aided by the FBI on Tuesday to process the area and recover the remains that were sent to the Utah Office of the Medical Examiner for confirmation of identity. Why is Box Elder thanking anybody? They did nothing. They did nothing but cause pain and agony for Dylan's family.
Some court stuff to obviously get worked out, to get solved, to get taken care of. This has been a case we've covered extensively on East Idaho News since Dylan vanished. In fact, here was a picture just at CrimeCon last year. They put up a "Have you seen me" poster with all of these nice messages around them. Keep fighting. Love how his parents represent him. We will find you, Dylan. Hold on to hope. And then there's these wonderful photos that his mother has shared with us and on publicly on social media. There's little Dylan as a young boy feeding pigs.
Oh my God. Adorable. Oh, yes, she is, Ava. Oh, yes, she is. He was squatting, kinda. He had been taken out because he was bothering the people in Montello. He's like, "Ooh," and he was basically put there, so nobody else had to deal with him, and it didn't work out so well for Dylan. Oh, what a mofo. Yeah, well said. Thank you, James Brenner, for finally being human. Hell doesn't even want you. Yeah, there's a James Brenner was squatting not far. I mean, Dylan could walk it. Yeah, he was jealous of him, wasn't he? A lot of people say that, and Brenner had nothing. He was a loopy old shite. So now is okay. Mel, you seem to be on this pretty damn good. Yeah, Dylan had fired him. The guy that Brenner hung out with, who he took his weapons to and said, "Here, I don't want them to be taken." Do you remember the name of him, guys? Oh, yeah. Right, girlfriend? Mm. He lived, it was like in an old trailer on the property. Jazz just don't.
There he is on a tractor. He loved farming, was big into farming, big into the outdoors, fishing. There he is. I don't know if he's taking care of a sheep there. Looks like he might be. And here he is on a tractor, which, again, he loved to farm. And that's what took him out to that location so that he could begin farming. He was raised in Eastern Idaho. His father is still in Eastern Idaho, Justin Rounds. And tonight, again, they have the answer they've been waiting for. They have recovered Dylan Rounds' body. We will continue to follow this story and bring
Trying to see what else I can find. Yeah, mine are mostly on another computer. But Dylan Rounds found. Okay, I found some of my notes. I've got James Brenner affidavit. Holy. Yeah, you do, Dandy. And he is a real piece of shite. So it wasn't Chase. It wasn't one of the Wadsworths. It wasn't the jockey. Whatever the hell that was all about. So, yeah, James and Dylan, their phones pinged in the same area for hours. Most of my stuff is on that other computer. Why do I have information on that jerk? Brenner's past. History: DUI, assault with intent to malicious intent, injury, intent to an intent to he had while he was out there before doing this to Dylan. 1 weapons charge. Yeah. Oh, his name will come to me. Yes, exactly. Oh, it's Don Hatley. That's who it is. It's Don Hatley. Enough. It's Don Hatley. That's who I'm thinking of. And Don had the gate key, right? Don was the only one that had a key for that gate that Brenner had put up. Yeah, that's right. Dylan's grandmother asked him to check on Dylan. Yeah, Don Hatley. That's exactly who it is. So if he got help anywhere, that's the guy. That is the guy. Oh, he's just beautiful, young boy. Yeah, it could very, very well be, because Don is where Brenner took those weapons when they were doing searches looking for weapons. Oh, whoa. Tragic discovery. Missing teen Dylan Round's body found 2 years after his disappearance, as suspect James Brenner leads cops to the burial site. The body of missing teen has been discovered after 2 long years. Suspect James Brenner informed the authorities of a remote burial site located in Utah desert as part of a plea agreement on Tuesday. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? He'll never get out. Maybe it was to keep him alive. I don't know why. Wild. Rounds mysteriously went missing over Memorial Weekend from his desert home in Lucin, Utah, when he was 19 years old. Brenner is charged in connection to Rounds' death and faces aggravated and abuse of a desecration of a human body. Rounds' family has finally been given answers after 2 years of trying to figure out what happened. They were informed that Rounds' body was found at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. So that's this morning. We thank everyone for the support and love. Candace Cooley Rounds, mom of Dylan Rounds. We are grateful we now have Dylan's body and can bring him home as we continue our fight for justice. They were not going to give up. This family was not going to give up. Not until they were able to bring him home. Let's see. I wish I could say there was a lot more out here for me to share. So Heavy D helped do a search with Candace and Justin. They had quite a bit of help offered to them, and I'm very glad that they took it. Let's see what Candace has to say right now while I search.
Easy way to explain stuff out here. You guys will just have to see it from the air, and it'll make more sense because there's honestly no words for it.
Yeah. This is a missing person, young kid from Idaho who was running a farm out here in the very, very western part of Utah, on the other side of the Great Salt Lake. He's got his whole family's from Idaho. He's from Idaho, 19-year-old kid. Bought his grandpa's farm. Some weird stuff's been happening. We'll explain the whole story here in a little bit, but long story short, he called his family about running into some sketchy dude last Wednesday. He went missing on Sunday night. He's gone, his phone's gone, and his wallet's gone. And then when people went out to kind of search for him, a story popped up that the guy that he ran into potentially was in a town called Montello, Nevada, because at the time that he ran into him last Wednesday, the dude asked to use his phone, so he let him use his phone for a second, and then he asked for a ride, and Dylan was like, no, it just kind of like passed on him and left him. This dude was walking barefoot down the street. He appeared to be like high on something. So anyways, fast forward to Sunday, people are saying that this guy went to town, to Montello, Nevada, which is about 20 miles east of where Dylan's farm is, and asked about Dylan, and then somebody supposedly gave him a ride to Dylan's trailer at the farm, and then that's the story that they had. But now the story is kind of evolving. Different people, basically this area, it's a really weird area. It's west side of the Great Salt Lake, so it's very desolate. It's actually a military operating area, and in fact, if you look here on our flight map, it's all restricted airspace. So but all this area right here is what we're going to be flying through. So we had to call up to the Air Force Base here, Hill Air Force Base, and get special clearance to be able to do this. And because general aviation, nobody can enter this airspace. This is all off limits to pretty much everybody. So another interesting component to this is they're actually, the range is live and active today, which means they're out there doing target practice with, jets, helicopters, all sorts of stuff. So we have a very specific flight plan that we have to follow to be able to get out there. But we do have approval, and we're going to be talking with the tower and the range the whole time, kind of letting them know where we're at so we don't get struck by some sort of errant missile or something. But basically, the family's been out there for the last couple of days searching, and this whole area is filled with kind of either ranchers, farmers, or meth heads. It's that's kind of the only people out there. Nearest town is Montello, Nevada, which is maybe like 3 or 4 square blocks. It's not a very big city at all.
So he's exactly right. Very, very remote. That was one of the problems when it came to trying to find this kid, is how remote it was. There was hundreds, if not thousands, of mine shafts. And I honestly thought that's going to be where they're going to find this boy, is down one of those shafts on the Utah border with Nevada.
And then from there, nearest town is Wendover, which is a little like border town right here with Utah inside Nevada. But the whole area is just full of kind of sketchy people. And apparently there's a lot of sketchy people that were working on Dylan's farm, working for his grandpa. And then Dylan, when he either bought the farm or took it over, these people, there's just some weird stuff going on there. And there's a potential that they killed him and they buried the body, which is kind of, the worst case scenario here. But we are kind of the only search and rescue operation that has the ability to get out there right now and do it. Nobody else has searched from the air. They've been out there, like I said, on horseback and razors and stuff, searching around. But according to the family who's out there, they say every time either the police or somebody shows up, all these kind of squatters and different people just show up and like start watching and listening. And so even though it's like literally in the middle of nowhere, there's a bunch of people out there just kind of like camping and like That's the best way to describe it.
She said it's like super weird because she doesn't know where they are or where they're getting information, but they'll all of a sudden show up when like detectives or police or sheriff show up. Like they're all of a sudden there.
Yeah, so it sounds like
walking
a
somewhere,
network,
somewhere,
a network of people, squatters, drug addicts, different people like that are all kind of on the same page, that communicate with each other all the way from the Nevada side of the border into the Utah side of the border. And if this was part of their plan, if they intentionally tried to get rid of Dylan, or if Dylan pissed somebody off and there was an argument.
Sorry, I'm just gonna see.
He worked his whole life, and she's like, well, his young life.
So he didn't date in high school. He didn't worry about going on party. He woke up every morning, went to work on the farm, and that's what he wanted to do.
He wanted to be a farmer, and now he has it, and now something's happened.
We're dealing with very, very little information here, like minimal information. From what we've been hearing, there's definitely the potential for some foul play.
Bienvenidos, amigo.
Alright, so you're currently about maybe 10 miles from where we're meeting up with Dylan's family. I'm not sure if this is the actual farm or the ranch where he was working or right nearby it, but from here we're going to be able to touch down, meet with his parents, and then all the other people who are out here looking for him, and then get a good idea of or a better idea of what happened, and then we're going to pick back up and search the area. This is basically kind of the terrain we're going to be searching. It's kind of like lake bed. It's kind of like this is a little bit higher than the Bonneville Salt Flats, and then you've got these huge mountain ranges that come up out of it. So I think the ranch or the farm that we're going to was on the lake bed part. So hopefully we don't have to fly too up in the mountains as far as searching for him goes. But we'll see what shakes out once we meet up with the family here.
Yep, this is Dave Sparks. So.
Hi, I'm Candace. I'm mom. This is my husband, Mike.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you guys. I'm sorry.
I know, it sucks.
That sucks.
We know he's out here.
This was the post guy. There's a
Yeah.
shop up here, and that's where he was supposed to leave from. And behind that shop, that's where we found his boots.
Yeah, we found his boots.
Just his boots.
That's it.
From here.
Yeah.
But his campers and pickup and everything was locked up on the other end.
We'll have you
Sure, you see that shop?
Yep.
So that's where Dylan, last we heard from Dylan, he was going in to park his grain truck, his seed truck, so that it didn't get rained on. That was like 7:30 Saturday morning, and then he said he calls grandma right back, and then she never.
That was Saturday morning.
That was Saturday morning, and so we figured he took off across the desert, walking back to his camper, because that's nothing unusual for him.
How far is his camper from there?
It's 5 miles down this road. Yeah. But for a 19-year-old kid who's out here farming by himself, he's used to having to walk himself around.
Okay.
Move equipment. He's, But then later that day, when search and rescue got out, we found his boots behind this dirt pile that's straight out back here, about 400 yards from where he left his grain truck. So we're starting to wonder if he was even the one that took his grain truck out there. There's some sketchy stuff because there's really deep ruts where his grain truck was, and it shouldn't have rained that hard already.
Yeah.
Because the rain didn't start till like 6 in the morning.
Okay.
So we don't know if something went on out there. Like I said, that's kind of with your guys' eyes in the sky, watch freshly turned up dirt. I mean, you guys know what to look for. Just any disturbance that shouldn't be there. This desert's pretty much all the same. So
yeah. So that way we'll find basically just a trailer.
A cam trailer, you'll see the pivot, his pickup. There's all kinds of equipment. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's all of his stuff's out there. Straight through, see that dirt pile?
Okay, yeah.
His boots were just tossed out right behind that. And there was nothing else around him, nothing.
Yeah. Were they on the far side of the away from
Yeah.
the road, so
Yep.
you wouldn't see them from the road? And that's all you guys have found so far?
Yeah, we have nothing else. And they, like I said, search and rescue, they were out here the first night. They got here, maybe 5? They didn't even take off and looking until probably 7:30.
Yeah.
Then they bailed, and then they came back maybe 6 hours that day, and then they said, we're calling it, and they all left.
Past that over there, you'll see the hill, and that's the last place his phone was pinged.
Yeah.
Right. That
Where?
after.
Right past that shop by the railroad tracks, there's a hill you drop down in.
The shop and the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
you can see the road kind of goes like.
That's what's happened. Sometimes yesterday it'd be pretty hard coming back from Lucin.
We do a breakdown of the chilling case of Dylan Rounds, the teenage farmer who suddenly disappeared in Utah. And then we bring in legendary homicide detective Phil Waters to discuss the criminal case against the man allegedly responsible. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Tragic story of Dylan Rounds and what we know so far in this criminal case. So Dylan Rounds was a 19-year-old farmer originally from Idaho that decided to start a whole new life out in Utah. Pretty amazing to think about that. And by all accounts, he loved farming. He had a true passion for it. In fact, Law and Crime Network Sierra Gillespie actually interviewed Dylan's parents, Justin Rounds and Candace Cooley, and here's what they had to say about their son.
Dylan from the time he could toddle around with his dad and his grandpa, that was just it. We knew, he was going to be a farmer and that's what he was going to do.
I mean, his hobbies were farming. It sounds kind of odd. It is kind of odd a little bit, but that's what he liked. Since he was little, that's all he ever wanted to do. Dylan was pretty go-getter and hard work didn't bother him. And people might think we just say that because it's our son. It was the absolute truth.
So when he turned 16 and got to go do that stuff, it was better than getting his driver's license. Just to be able to go work on a farm. But he was just a worker. He was just a good-hearted worker. That's all he, ever wanted.
Now, according to his family, Dylan saved up money from fixing up tractors, doing custom work, trading farm equipment, and he actually bought himself a farm down in Lucin, Utah with his grandfather. And that's pretty amazing to think about someone doing.
I'm just going to bump it up a little bit.
Okay. And when they hang up, that is the last time anybody heard from him. He just suddenly disappears. 2 days later, Dylan's mother reports him missing. This comes after not hearing from him, and especially after they discover something very important.
It was Monday that Dylan's best friend called me and said, have you heard from Dylan? And I said, well, no, I talked to him on Thursday. And he says, well, kind of told me Karen said I talked to him this day. And so I called him, and I'd called and texted him a couple of times and didn't hear anything back over that weekend, which was nothing out of the usual. I knew he was planting. It was nothing for Dylan to break a phone, not have a charger, nothing out of the ordinary, until myself, his father, grandpa, friends, everybody kind of started talking, and nobody had heard from him. And that was not normal. So that's when we all headed to Lucin to go see what was going on.
So James Brenner took them to his remains, a plea deal. And James Brenner took him to the location. So we're going to watch a little bit more of this and see what the parents have to say. This was just a couple days after. Is this one just a couple days after? I'm getting a little mixed up because I've bounced a little bit. But this is the parents speaking out when this first happened.
He wouldn't have left his boots there. They weren't old. They weren't bad. Old and worn out for Dylan would be basically his toes sticking through a hole. There would have been no reason for those boots to have been in my mind at all.
But it's when we found the boots. When we found the boots, there is no other explanation for them to be out there besides Brenner put them out there. And the only way you would get Dylan's boots off of him is if he was not alive to keep you from doing it. And that's when we knew.
Now, apparently, local law enforcement. A suspect. So who is James Brenner? Well, according to Dylan's mother, Candace, Brenner was an acquaintance of her son. Actually, he was his neighbor. Really, he was a trespasser, if we want to be honest. Brenner was squatting in a trailer that was a few miles away from Dylan's property. And Mr. Brenner has quite the history, or maybe I should say criminal history. You see, according to various reporting, Brenner shot a man in the 1980s over a work dispute. And back in 2012, Brenner was sentenced to over 2.5 years in prison for illegal possession of a firearm because he was a convicted felon. And then in June and July of 2022, he was hit with federal firearms charges. Now, what's interesting is that Dylan's parents apparently had a weird feeling about James Brenner, especially because of alleged comments that Brenner made about Dylan in the past.
Jim was talking to a kid that works for me. I was watching him on the cameras. He was telling the kid what a spoiled kid Dylan was. He doesn't treat anything very good. You could just see a lot of jealousy in him. And I called Dylan and I said, Jim Brenner isn't your friend. He's sitting there talking about you. And he said, Jim's just kind of an ass.
So then when we got up there, Brenner was telling myself and my husband about how, Dylan couldn't fight his way out of anything. He shouldn't have even had a gun. He didn't know how to use it. All he could do was throw it at somebody. Like just all this really weird, like it's just not stuff you say when, and then I said, because we originally thought, hey, maybe Dylan left the shed and he's walking back to his farm because Brenner didn't give him a ride. He's out there bit by a snake, fell and broke an ankle, whatever.
A couple of years ago, I introduced myself to Brenner. He was at my grandpa's house. My son had bought a bunch of pigs, and across the road from my grandpa's house was a vet clinic, and Jim Brenner was there. I was pretty upset that they bought the pigs and brought them to that property, and I was pretty upset when I left. And Dylan texted me and says, Jim Brenner's going to shoot you, and he's going to do, he doesn't like to be talked to like that. I said, well, then I'll have to come talk to him. And I came back to talk to him at the farm, and he was with my dad. My dad was calming him down. Calmed me down, and it kind of just blew over.
So law enforcement takes a closer look at Brenner. And what do they find? You remember the boots that his parents mentioned? Well, deputies discovered those boots, Dylan Round's boots, where Brenner was squatting. And one boot had a blood stain that DNA analysis confirmed belonged to Dylan Rounds, in addition to DNA belonging to Brenner. They also found Dylan's farm truck. But that's not all. Cell phone records show that Dylan's phone moved near where Brenner was squatting on the day that Dylan vanished. And they also find Dylan's actual phone at Lucin Pond. And when investigators do a digital forensic download of the phone, they find a video, time-stamped at the time of Dylan's disappearance. And in this video, you see Brenner with, quote, blood stains on his arms and shirt as he is cleaning a gun. And guess what? Investigators find and test that shirt, and Dylan's DNA is on it. And according to Fox News, after Dylan went missing, a neighbor claims that Brenner asked him to hide several guns for him, saying it was for his own safety, and that, quote, the last time he had trouble with the law, they took everything from him, and he didn't want the things that he had left to be taken away. According to authorities, quote, Brenner was interviewed and made several claims that corroborated forensic evidence, in addition to making numerous demonstrably false statements.
So, yeah. They have Dylan. They can take him home. They can lay him to rest. And yeah, Brenner can burn all the way to hell. Yep. Absolutely. Justice for Dylan. I'm calming down a little bit. That was amazing news. A little bit of a kick in the stomach. But hey, they have him. And Brenner can burn in hell. So guys, it has been a very, very long day. I'm not going to be streaming after this. I was going to, but I am going to be up bright and early and start streaming maybe 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Somewhere around there. So, thank God. Thank God. Well, thanks for being here with me, guys. We can take a deep breath, keep Candace, Justin, his family in our hearts, and lay that baby to rest. Thanks, guys.